questions. Secrets of speaker evaluation. So I'll pass it over to Andrew.
Okay. Thank you very much, and welcome everybody to today's evaluation workshop. Now, just for the benefit of the guests, Toastmasters is the largest educational institution in the world. So it's a global enterprise. It's been around for 100 years. So it was founded in 1924 by Ralph Smedley. It's in close to 150 countries. There's close to 16,000 clubs, and there's roughly 300,000 active members. Now, why am I mentioning this? So Toastmasters is a unique organization because what happens in Toastmasters, every meeting is divided into 3 parts. There's prepared speeches, and Philip mentioned the Pathways program. This is the educational program that Toastmasters offers. It's been digitized. It was originally in manuals that we had, but it's been digitized, and you get access to Pathways when you join Toastmasters. So there's always prepared speeches. There's always the impromptu speaking part, the table topics, where we really think and speak quickly on our feet. But the third part, which to me is one of the most important, is the evaluation. And this is what makes Toastmasters unique, because you evaluate in the very meeting itself the people who have spoken. So when you do a prepared speech, and prepared speech is usually 5 to 7 minutes, you then have an evaluation in the evaluation segment, which is the last segment of the meeting, for 2 to 3 minutes, and you receive that feedback instantaneously, more or less. Plus, you also evaluate every meeting role within the meeting itself, because Toastmasters, anybody know what the tagline of Toastmasters is?
We're leaders at once.
We're leaders of many, yeah. So Toastmasters' tagline doesn't even mention communication, it actually mentions leadership, because every meeting role that you take on, you're developing a competency and a skill set that's going to help you be a leader. But to be a great leader, you also have to be a great communicator. So tonight, we're going to concentrate on the evaluation aspect. Now, from an evaluation perspective, who here has done evaluations? I assume you have all done speech evaluations. Who loves to do a speech evaluation? You love to do a speech evaluation? Excellent, good, okay. Now, when it comes to evaluations, what do you think is the benefit outside of Toastmasters? So anything we learn in Toastmasters can be applied outside. Yeah, sorry.
Active listening.
Active listening, absolutely. Why do you say active listening?
Because the speech is important to understand what it's about, to evaluate.
Exactly, yeah. You've got to be listening, focused on the speaker for 5 to 7 minutes to understand how you can provide a structured evaluation to help the speaker do what? Well, why do we evaluate?
Because for me, the first thing, if I be an evaluator, I will pay my 100% attention about what the person is speaking. I'm trying to write down everything and try to learn from her or him. Is the first thing. The second thing, and from my knowledge, as I know, how can I give her hope or advice, not advice, at least for my side, and what if I were to give this speech, maybe I will add what I will add on and make me to active thinking, not just passive sitting there. And then number 3, after you listen to the person, what she has given a speech or he has given a speech, you know more about them. And then because this is one of we come here, we want to make friends, right? At least you know, and you need to pay attention what she's saying, what his theory or his attitude to the life, and we want to help each other, and that becomes a better communication. Thank you.
Exactly, yeah. So some great points there. So we evaluate essentially because we want to help the speaker become a better communicator. Because every time we communicate, we're trying to impart a message. And we want to make sure that message is understood by the audience as effectively and as efficiently as possible. We want to make an impact on those around us in terms of sharing that information. So what the evaluator does is that they highlight those things that the speaker is doing well, plus what can they do differently to be more impactful next time. So this is why, to me, the evaluation portion of any meeting is the most important, because we're helping each other grow And Toastmasters is a very safe, nurturing environment. Look at it as a laboratory. You can try things out here for the first time and receive feedback in terms of how to become better at that. Rather than trying something for the very first time, perhaps within your workplace, because that could not work out so well. So from a non-Toastmasters perspective, I assume everybody here works for a corporation, organization, or something along those lines?
Mm.
And do you ever do appraisals, or do you ever have appraisals that you have to go through, self-appraisals? You get assessed at some point?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if you're providing an assessment or an appraisal for somebody else, you want to be able to do that as effectively as possible because you want to help them become a better individual in terms of what they're doing within the organization, a better team player, etc. But at the same time, if you learn how to give feedback, you can also receive feedback more effectively and then apply that in terms of becoming more effective at your position at work. So evaluations is very, very important, not just within Toastmasters and helping speakers become better communicators, but outside of Toastmasters, particularly when we're involved in mid-year appraisals, year-end appraisals, but receiving feedback and giving feedback for the individuals around you. So tonight what I want to do is I want to go through a variety of different topics here. And I'm going to start off with the importance of evaluation. Let me just come over here. I want to turn this slightly. I want to talk about how to deliver an evaluation effectively. And we're going to practice this as well. I think it's important. The thing with Toastmasters that makes it so effective is that it's experiential. You practice the skills in every meeting to help become a better impromptu speaker, prepared speaker, an evaluator, etc. And then we'll talk about club roles because that's very important as well when it comes to evaluation. So let's first of all start off with the importance of an evaluation. And I'm going to talk about words because the words that we say are extremely important in terms of people listening to us, how they close down, they become defensive, etc. So I'm going to show you some quotes, give you a few seconds to read it. And then I want your thoughts on it. So have a look at this first paragraph. This was a wonderful speech of content and meaningful substance to help us grow, respond more, react less. This is actually taken from a Toastmasters meeting. Somebody gave a speech and this is what an evaluator said. So just out of curiosity, how do you feel about this? What are your thoughts about this particular piece of feedback? It is?
Encouraging, but not especially specific.
Yeah, okay, yeah. It's encouraging, so you might feel good, but you're right, it's not very specific in terms of giving helpful information as to what they may have done well, what they can improve. Any other thoughts on this? Yes?
It's also a bit confusing in that respond more and react less. So I'm thinking that, so it's not very clear what they're trying to say.
Right, yeah. So is this helpful feedback?
It's a vague.
Not particularly.
No, not particularly. It might make you feel good, but is it helpful? So this person was working on the engaging humor path. So it's one of the 6 paths that's available. All the paths are geared towards, they changed how their approach to the educational program. So many of the paths now are geared to what you want to pursue perhaps in a career. So dynamic leadership, for instance, effective coaching, persuasive influence. This was the engaging humor project this person was doing. It was a level 5 speech. There are 5 levels in every path, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So cumulative, you build upon the skills that you've done within each of those levels until you get to the top level. And then once you finish level 5, you get into proficiency. This is what the person said next. Regrettably, as a level 5 engaged with humor, it didn't make anybody laugh. It just flat out wasn't funny. Now, if you were the speaker, how would you feel if you received this feedback?
Not great, and it's also not helpful.
What they want to try to say? Right?
Critic.
Well, I was in this meeting and I recorded and it was recorded, so I was able to take word for word and use this as an example. I won't say which club, which meeting, etc., or which individual. But essentially they're saying this person wasn't funny, it's engaged with humor path, and they making me laugh. Now, this was an online meeting. Everybody's muted. I saw people chuckling. But you don't hear that because they're muted. So it's not even true. But this person, they didn't feel good when this was said. And in fact, what I learned afterwards was people were chatting and sending texts saying, no, don't listen to this person. You did a great speech, it was funny, etc. But this is why I'm saying words are so important, because if you say the wrong things, you can demotivate a speaker to the point where I don't want to come back and speak in front of this group again. If I'm going to receive feedback like this, why would I do that? So let me move on to one of my favorite quotes. It's a proverb, actually. It's an Arabian proverb. So have a read of this, and I'll give you a few seconds. The words of the tongue should have 3 gatekeepers. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Now, if you learn nothing else, or if you remember nothing else from this workshop, if you remember this, then excellent. Because this is something that I always keep in mind when I do an evaluation, but also when I'm doing, for instance, appraisal at work, etc. Because to me, this is ever so important. So the first question, is it true? Now, when you evaluate, you can't talk about something that didn't happen. I mean, it may seem fairly obvious, but I always add 2 little words to this question. Is it true for me? Now, the reason I do that is because when we evaluate, it's our personal opinion. Have you ever come across a speaker that you sort of dread evaluating because they're so good? And you think, no? Okay, good, that's good. I've come across people who are a little bit scared sometimes to evaluate really good speakers because they're thinking, me, what can I possibly tell them to improve? But you see, as a speaker, I want to understand how my words impacted you directly. And therefore, to me, you can always evaluate anybody. I can always evaluate anybody, because is it true for me? How did that speech impact me? I'll tell you how it impacted me. So that's an important question to make sure that it's in the affirmative. Is it true? Yes. Is it necessary? Now, this is really important because there are some things that a speaker may do that they can't do anything about. And what I mean by that is any feedback has to be actionable. So for instance, if somebody has a speech impediment, or if somebody has an accent, a thick accent for instance, telling them they have a speech impediment or they have a thick accent, can they action that? No. So why are you saying it to them? I mean, they probably know already that they have an accent and they have they'll know. It's unhelpful advice. In fact, it's not even advice. It's not a...
It's a comment.
It's a comment, but it's unnecessary because you can't do anything with that. Now, if somebody has an accent, and some people say to me, hey, Andrew, you got a bit of an accent, sometimes I can't understand what you're saying. What you could say to somebody is saying, hey, if you could just slow down a little bit, because that'll allow me to catch up with what you're saying, and if you enunciate the words really clearly, see, that could be helpful because I can actually. But simply telling me that, I have an accent is unnecessary. So whenever you evaluate, make sure that it's actionable. And the last one to me is really important. Is it kind? So when we evaluate, we have to make sure that at the end of it, the person feels motivated and want to come back up into the stage and redo the speech, because if we see some really valuable feedback and it's been done in a nurturing, supportive way. So if we go back to this statements that were made here, regrettably, is overflying engaged with humor just to make everybody laugh, and this part wasn't funny. Well, 1, it wasn't true because people were laughing and they just happened to be amused. 2, is it necessary? No, because they can't action it. And 3, is it kind? No, they're being unkind. So it's a complete and utter fail what that person said. Should never have been said. And I'll just leave you with one more quote. Just give me a few seconds to read this. So it takes 11 positive statements to erase the one negative one. Negative remarks stay with us a long time, whether or not we deserve them. And it's by Carol, who's a Toastmaster. I don't know if it's just human nature, but I tend to remember things more so than some of the negative things that happened in my life than perhaps some of the positive things. Perhaps it was embarrassing, perhaps something happened, but it seems to stick around. So again, when we say something to somebody, when we provide the feedback, make sure it's nurturing and supportive, because if you get into that realm of being unkind, who knows how long it's going to linger with that individual. Okay, let's move on to what I frame as everybody wins. So when somebody gives a speech, there's an audience. You are the audience. I'm doing a speech. I'm the speaker today, you're the audience. If an evaluator can evaluate me so that the next time I stand up here, I give even a better speech, who doesn't want to hear a better speech? The audience benefits from it. So the audience will always benefit from a good evaluation because it helps the speaker. It raises the quality of the club itself and of all the roles within that club. So to me, the evaluator is the most important role because it's through the evaluating, whether it's doing a meeting role or whether it's doing a speech, you're going to help people improve. And then as an audience member, you'll be listening to better and better speakers. Anybody familiar with the Joe Harvey window? No? It's a framework that's sometimes used in leadership. But there are 4 panes. So it looks like a window with 4 panes. And you'll see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4. You have the known self, and these are things that we know about ourselves, and you probably know that about me as well. I tend to speak fast. The hidden self is, there's something I know about me that I'm not going to reveal to you. You don't know about it. And therefore it's hidden. Now the reason I'm showing this to you is because when we evaluate, the known self is something that you can highlight to somebody and say, hey, this is something you're doing well. And I might already know about it, and you can see it, but it's a strength of mine. The hidden self, as an evaluator, you can't do anything about it, because I haven't revealed it to you. The blind self is something that you can help a speaker understand something about themselves that they can then use for the next speech. So for instance, when I joined Toastmasters, years ago, my very first speeches, I'll be up in front of the audience, and I'll be going back and forth, thinking that movement was a good thing, and I'll be speaking away and doing my points, and thinking hard, etc. What do you think, just based on what the brief demonstration, what do you think was one of the first things that somebody said to me?
Distracted?
The movement?
Yeah.
Yeah. But did you notice anything about my eye contact?
There was no eye contact.
There wasn't any eye contact. I never realized that as a speaker, I looked down. Never even occurred to me. So as soon as somebody said that to me, I realized, oh, I better look at the audience, make that eye connection, that contact, if I want to be a more effective communicator. So as an evaluator, if you can point that out to a speaker so that there's discovery there, then they can improve upon next time when they give the next speech. This one here, the unknown, something I don't know about me, you don't know about me, but as an evaluator, why don't you explore? Because I mentioned Toastmasters is a laboratory. So for instance, I rarely use humor in my speeches. I don't know if I can use it effectively. You don't know if I can use it effectively. But why don't you challenge me as an evaluator and say, hey, Andrew, given that speech that you did, if you put a funny story in at that point, your midway point, I think it's going to really add to the impact and really emphasize the point. Now, why am I showing you the Joe Harvey window? Okay, the pathways evaluation form. Everybody's familiar with it? 3 pages. What's on the first page? And for the guest, every speech, there's an evaluation form that comes along with it that has different segments. So when you've done your speech, not only do you receive a verbal evaluation, you'll receive a written evaluation. So you have things to refer to. So what's on the first page?
There are questions, what you like about it, what can be improved, and the second page is about tone.
Well, no, the first page only.
Yeah, questions.
Yeah, so 1, you gave me 2.
And what's the third one?
So these are here. I'm not sure, can you read that from the
Challenge, yeah.
But you excel at, so the strengths. It's always important to have strengths. You may want to work on and you to challenge yourself. And to me, you excel as the known self, the blind self is what you want to work on, and then the unknown self. So this is how I sort of keep, when I'm putting together an evaluation, I'm always thinking about these different aspects. Now, what's on the second page?
Attributes. Tone, eye contact.
Yeah, okay.
Like specific
Yeah.
areas.
Voice.
Yeah. So right there. So there's a second page of evaluation. Now, if it's hard to see from the back, there's got clarity, vocal variety, eye contact, gestures, audience awareness. There's all these different categories. 1 to 5. So let's say you did a speech and I gave you all 3s. How would you feel?
Not that useful.
Not that useful? But what is 3?
It's accomplished, but it doesn't say like, but.
It's accomplished. So if I said you were accomplished in every category, you wouldn't feel good.
Well, it seems very unlikely that anyone would be in the same spot at all of them. And I wouldn't know like what are the weaker points to work on or what was.
Okay, so the 2s and 1s, right? Emerging and developing. So let's say you only ever had 1, 2s, and 3s on the evaluation form. Would you feel good? Because they introduced the 4 and 5, I think people like to see the 4s and 5s, right? But the 4 is excels and the 5 is exemplary. So just out of curiosity, when it comes to eye contact, what's a 4 and what's a 5? If 3 is accomplished, what's a 4 in eye contact? What's a 5? Does anybody, so there's a page 3. Does anybody look at page 3?
Definitions?
Definitions.
There's a definitions, yeah. So how often do you look at page 3?
Often as much as I should.
No, it's not. Page 3 can help you as an evaluator. So let's say you come across a speaker that does this fantastic speech. You're not quite sure what to say. Beforehand, if you look at page 3, have a look to see what the 4s and 5s are. Because are they really doing that? So for instance, when it comes to eye contact, 4 uses eye contact to gauge audience reaction and response. Now you have to start thinking about, well, what does that actually mean? So me as a speaker, am I doing that? Am I looking at you? Am I gauging the audience reaction and response? Well, you would have to let me know. But look at number 5. Uses eye contact to convey emotion and elicit response. Now, if you watch a movie or you watch actors and actresses, yeah, they're doing that because they have to in terms of if it's a good movie. But think of it from the perspective of a speaker as well when it comes to eye contact. See, 3, which is effectively uses eye contact to engage audience, that's accomplished. Hey, I'd be happy if I had that. Do I have 4 and 5? I'm not sure. So have a look. See, here's the great thing about Toastmasters. The Toastmasters program, just to take an evaluation form, is so rich with information. Just by looking at that, you can learn a lot for yourself to be a speaker, but in terms of helping other people become better speakers. Okay, let's move on to the evaluation delivery. And I have what I call the backbone of a good evaluation. I've got 3 points here. I've got personal opinion. Anybody remember what that Arabian proverb said?
Make sure what you said is true, necessary, and found.
Yeah. The 3 questions, right? The words of the tongue shall 3 gatekeepers. Is it true? So personal opinion, is it true for me? Have you ever heard about an evaluation where somebody says, hey, the audience loved it? Anybody ever hear that being said? How do you know the audience loved it? Do you actually go to every member in the audience and ask them, do you love it?
Probably.
No, because you don't have time to do that. So if I hear that from an evaluation, I'm feeling, yeah, I'm not sure that you went to every audience member. It's a personal opinion. How did it impact you? I want to know how it impacted you because I'm trying to understand how did I come across. By saying the audience loved it, it's, you don't know. Now, if he said I loved it, then I'm thinking, okay, this person is giving me how they were impacted by it. So when it comes to personal opinion, I appreciated, what would make the speech even more impactful for me. So it's the I words and the me words. Specificity. Anybody want to take a guess what I mean by that?
Giving actionable advice. So something specific that I can look at and say, oh, okay, I can change that.
Yes, yes. You have to give the details of what it is that you're talking about. Because if you don't, as a speaker, I'll make them up. And I could be utterly wrong. So for instance, here's an example. Anybody ever hear of sort of evaluation that starts off or has it within it? I love the introduction, it's very engaging. Now, if that's all that I'm told by the evaluator, okay, I love your introduction, it's very engaging. I'm going to start making things up. I'm going to say, I know why they liked it. Because I came out into the middle of the stage, I paused, I smiled, I made eye contact with everybody, they felt engaged, and that's why they loved it. But no, the evaluator didn't mean that at all. What they meant was, I appreciate the introduction to ask a thought-provoking question. So asking a question at the beginning of a speech can be effective. Okay, I'm going to remember that for next time, and next time I do a speech, maybe I'll do a thought-provoking question. And then you pause, which allows me to reflect upon the question. Okay, more detail. So you ask a question, then you have to pause because you have to allow people to internalize it and start answering the question. So you need time to do that. Okay? That's effective as well. Great. Before engaging me again by asking me to raise my hand if my answer left me feeling happy. Now I'm getting the audience to do something. So I'm asking a question, pausing, then saying, raise your hand if you felt this. I was hurt. That is a very effective way to begin a speech. Because of all those details. But if you simply say, I love the introduction, and never explain why, then I'll never have understood that these three things were so important. So specificity, really, really important. Future focus. Future focus is where we give an evaluation, and instead of saying what the speaker did, is we try to transport them into the future in terms of what we would like them to do next time. So for instance, that example was walking back and forth. The evaluator could have said to me, I found your eye contact to be poor. You looked at the ground most of the time. Yeah, that's a true statement. I had poor eye contact, I was looking at the ground. But if you want to transport that person into the next speech and have them doing what you want them to do, how could you rephrase this?
I would love for you to make more eye contacts next time.
Yeah? Yeah?
Having more eye contact engages the audience more, so it'd be beneficial to not just look at the ground, always look at something, always look at the audience, always look around. But if you're not looking at anything, then it's not as engaging, and you're going to lose the audience focus.
Yeah, I like that. Because you explain why eye contact is important as well. If you look at the ground, you're not engaging, people will start wandering around as well. The way I rephrased it was, because it's not as if I didn't glance every now and then. Your speech really came alive for me during the moments when you looked at the audience. I'd love to see more of that in your next speech. So I'm always trying to think, okay, rather than just pointing out, for instance, doing an icebreaker, the very first time you do an icebreaker, so it's the very first speech you ever give in Toastmasters is the icebreaker. This is telling the audience about yourself, because you know more about yourself than anybody else. So it's the easiest speech to do, but it can be the most nerve-wracking because you're doing it for the first time in front of an audience. But sometimes you could be holding on to the lectern and shaking because you're so nervous. Rather than saying, well, you were shaking and you were so nervous and wanted the lectern, you could say, next time you do your speech, let go. And it gives you an opportunity to use your hands to do gestures, for instance. So you want to take them into the future. What evaluation, I'm asking myself questions. So when somebody does a speech, or when you give a speech, what, in your opinion, would make it an effective speech? What are some of the criteria? When you get to the end of that speech, what needs to have happened for you to feel, yeah, I did a good speech and it had impact?
If the audience is still engaged with you, they're still looking at you instead of just looking down, looking tired, or not looking at all.
I like that, excellent. Did you grab and maintain my attention? So did you grab it right off the start with the introduction, and then for the next 5 to 7 minutes, did you maintain it? And so when I listen to a speech, I'm always thinking, did I get distracted at any point? Did my mind start wondering why? Let me then let the speaker know what they could be doing differently to have continued to maintain my attention. What's something else very important about when we communicate?
To be clear to understand. Sometimes, I mean, you want the audience to feel good about, or like clever or smart when they're listening to you, that they understood all that you said.
You guys are good. Did I understand your message? Exactly. So I'm listening to a speech, I'm listening to the content, and trying to figure out, do I really understand what you're trying to say? Because sometimes speakers may have 2 or 3 messages that are intertwined and are not being as clear as they could be. And I might say to a speaker, say, I think it'd be more impactful if you just concentrate on one message and just concentrate on that particular message, rather than maybe trying to introduce 2 or 3. Or I might say to a speaker, I'm not quite sure what you were trying to get across. Were you trying to do this or that? So I'm trying to help them, sort of clarify. And then the last one that I always like to do is, what do they find memorable? So 10 days from now, what will you remember about your speech? Because you want to let the speaker know that they did something that was so memorable, continue to do that. Now, in terms of, how do you know if you gave a good evaluation? So I asked the question, how do you know if you gave a great speech? How do you know if you actually gave a great evaluation? What could you be asking the speaker afterwards to find out if you did a good evaluation?
Is it something that you can use to improve on? Did what I say help you figure out what you can do to improve?
You haven't been to one of my workshops before, have you? No? No, that's very good. I can't show that because I got something in front of that one.
Okay.
But exactly. What's something else that you want? So we mentioned, how do we improve the next time? And what's something else that you want the speaker?
I think it's also important how you make them feel.
You guys have been to my. So does the speaker feel good about the speech and evaluation process? Remember that, if you're unkind, if you say things that are not necessary, can't be actioned, you can demotivate somebody, and so that they'll never want to come up again. But at the end of the day, if you give a good evaluation, they will come back up and say, let me do that again. And then going to your point, does the speaker leave knowing exactly how to improve the speech for the next time? I often hear evaluations where, you did this well, you did that well, but I'm never told what I can do differently. And I feel cheated because there are no perfect speakers. There's always something that can be improved, and I need to understand from you what that is so I can improve it for next time. So it's really important when we do an evaluation that we let the speaker know, I think this would make your speech more impactful. Feel good, how to improve. So techniques. People are familiar with the sandwich technique? Yeah, the sandwich technique is?
True.
Good, bad, good.
Yeah, or you could say glow or grow glow. So you start off with strengths. You'll see there's a 3 there, you'll understand the 3 shortly. What can make the speech more impactful for me, right? It's a personal opinion. I'm not speaking on behalf of the audience. I can't speak on behalf of the audience. And what was amazing. So what they discovered through, within Toastmasters, but elsewhere as well, when it comes to providing feedback, you start off with something positive, you then provide them with gifts, sometimes it's called gifts, how they can be more impactful, and you finish off with something that's just, that was a wow, you hit it out of the ballpark. And that seems to be the most effective way for people to receive feedback. So I use a 3-2-1 formula. 3 strengths, 2 areas for improvement, 1 amazing, i.e. what will remember 10 days from now. And then the other thing that's really important is CAA, which is not the Canadian Automobile Association, but it's the current ability appropriateness. I would never evaluate somebody doing the icebreaker the same way I would evaluate somebody who's done 50 speeches in the DTM. Because the icebreaker, the person's coming for the very first time, the feedback you provide them is going to be very different from somebody who's been doing it, 50 speeches later. So CAA is really important as well. I've seen some people do the icebreaker, some really intense feedback, and I'm not sure that is that helpful to them. Evaluation feedback. I need 3 volunteers. Somebody who's going to do a table topic, and they're going to come up onto the stage here, and they're going to do a table topic. Then I need somebody to evaluate that table topic. Actually, I'll just ask for 2 volunteers. And then what we'll do as a group is we're going to evaluate the evaluator. So I've given you some techniques in terms of how to provide an effective evaluation. So when we evaluate the evaluator, we're not evaluating the table topic speaker, we're evaluating how that evaluator evaluated the table topic speaker. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So who would like to do a table topic? I think you wanted to do a table topic before, right?
No, I didn't do it.
No, you didn't, but I think you wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So would you like to do a table topic?
Yeah.
So what's your name?
Shivata.
Shivata?
Shivata.
Okay, Shivata?
Sure.
Okay. I'll try to get it right. Who would like to evaluate? And anybody can evaluate. I've given you some tips in terms of how to do it. You'll evaluate? Okay. So would you like to come up and I'll give you your table topic?
Oh, personal reflection? Yeah. Oh, you gave me, okay.
What has been your most interesting vacation to date?
Whoa!
And why? What has been your most interesting vacation to date and why? And please speak for more than a minute so that there's enough material to be evaluated on.
Hello everyone, my name is Shweta. I have not taken vacation for 3 years, more than 3 years. Been busy with work and recovering from burnout. But after going through such intense years and time of my life, I look back and I remember my trip to Thailand, which was in October 2022. It was sudden with my school friend. We went for 10 days. It was well planned. We had beaches, we had mountain, and we had temples and local street. Everything like full autonomy, do whatever you want. I was loaded with cash. It was once in a lifetime moment, and I want to go there again. What was most special about the vacation was the people. Different kind of cuisine, different lifestyle. It was nature, it was party, it was adventure, and it was calm. It was mixed. And these 3 years, I was miserable. I had no time for myself. I was working. I earned and I spent everything. And that's where, good question. That's a good question. That's a thought-provoking question. And I need to plan more vacation like that and make me feel alive. Thank you, everyone. That's my...
Thank you very much. Are you comfortable just coming straight up and evaluating?
Yeah, I wrote some notes.
Are you? Oh, okay. Please tell me welcome, Philippe. And as you do the evaluation, take notes in terms of Is he following some of the guidance that I provided? Because we'll do a group evaluation of Philippe's knowledge.
So thank you for holding your workshop so far. Thanks for an guinea pig. So start off according to the 3-2-1 format. So 3 immediate strengths noticed. So first was your personal story of burnout that did that emotional impact was there right away. Myself and probably a lot of people in this room experienced that. It was helpful. Overall, you seem just at ease and comfortable kind of disclosing that personal fact that you've done before. Just very kind of relaxed, easygoing person. The second is true from just how I've known you for myself. So should vibe bring to meetings. And also the hand gestures were like constant and effective the whole time. I wasn't getting bored watching you, quite animated. A couple of things to improve on. So eye contact was good. I felt there was a lot of quickly scanning back and forth throughout the room. Whereas in the future, it would be a good idea to focus on one person, 2 seconds. The next person, now you can really take into account and use the device of using the eye contact and the feedback, kind of gathering information as you're doing the speech to change what you're saying. And also the story itself, of course, it's about having a table topic, but it's somewhat randomly, seems to be sticking in a particular direction. But again, that happens all table topics. I'm sure if you're doing a paired speech, that wouldn't be an issue. And overall, I really enjoyed it. And I think you're on the right track in terms of improving public speaking. So congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you to both of you for volunteering and coming up here and delivering that. So let's evaluate the evaluation of the table topic, but it's the evaluation of the evaluation. What were the 3 points I had for the backbone of a good evaluation? What was the first one? What was the first point for the backbone of a good evaluation?
Personal opinion.
Personal opinion, yes. So was that a personal opinion that we just heard? And if it was, how could you tell?
There were points that were, he said, like, I thought.
So you were hearing that I thought? Yeah? Yeah?
Good question. How would we know it's a personal opinion?
What's the language that we use when we evaluate?
Oh.
So to say, I really appreciated that table topic you just did. Or I really appreciate that speech that you just did. And I would like to tell you some of the strengths that I saw, and the strengths, the gestures and the enthusiasm and the personal story. Now, what would make the speech even more impactful for me would be eye contact.
Mm.
So by incorporating those words, it becomes very clear that it's a personal opinion. But I think it also helps sometimes to frame or to come up with the language as well, to make it nurturing and supportive.
He didn't really use the word I or me or in there. It seemed very kind of generic or very like global, I guess, the language. And so they didn't really say, this is what I thought. So I didn't see that as being a personal opinion. Yeah.
True, but at the same time, he didn't say the audience loved that. So there's different degrees. I mean, you could say, the audience loved that, was fantastic, the audience is so engaged with it. No, you don't know that. But at the same time, there wasn't, I really appreciated to make it more impactful for me. I think when you make it personal, it does become more impactful evaluation. It's like when you tell a personal story. I always find personal stories in speeches. I tend to listen more because I'm drawn in. And I think when we use those I and the me's, it helps to connect with the speaker because now they're listening to you because you're telling them, here are my thoughts on it. But at the same time, you didn't go to the audience love that, so well done from that perspective. What about specificity? How do you think about the details within the evaluation?
was quite specific because he talked about body language, hand gestures, eye contact, like emotional impacts at the beginning of the, talk about the story and everything, so it was quite specific. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a check mark there. Now, could it be more specific?
Yeah.
Probably.
Like what?
Well, like,
On content. Content.
Content?
well, so for example, like that sort of closed, but didn't have a lot of specific figures.
Can you think of a specific example evaluation that could have been benefited from more detail?
Well, like the closing, sort of
Closing.
In terms of,
didn't have as much specificity in that part.
so sort of the memorable bit, it was a great speech. I really liked it because of the enthusiasm in your voice when you talked about the fact that, or the vocal variety, I was burned out, etc. But if you take the hand gestures, you mentioned the gestures. If you actually provide an example where you use the gestures and the words associated with it, I think it helps the speaker understand, oh, when you did this, when you said that, I found that to be very effective. Because if you just say hand gestures, then you're sort of wondering, well, I didn't do them all the time. Which one did you think was going to be the most? Sometimes you have to associate. You go down to another level. Say, hey, your hand gestures when you're talking about the adventure and the calm and that was really effective because you were pointing to different parts of the stage with your hands. And now you're able to say, oh, okay, the gestures where I was pointing is something I can use for my next speech, for instance. And then the last point, the future focus. What do we think about that?
Elizabeth has mentioned that there
No direction. Speech was too much personal story. Try something new. That's what
He mentioned rambling,
rambling.
but to me it was like a story. Like I don't know what that exactly means.
I feel it's most, all evaluators are going to generate their personal opinion because it's based on how they experience it. It's based on what they learned and what's their mindset on how to use the speech. So it's mostly going to be that, but you could tell sometimes for your question, if he says something about improving, he did say what she can do with her eyes. She can look at someone for 5 seconds, and that's an improvement. But yeah, I find that evaluation is always going to be a personal opinion. And it's very difficult to make it not a personal opinion because everyone is biased towards their own opinion.
Right, and what's interesting is, I belong to a club where we do a round table evaluation, so everybody gets, you still have a speech evaluator, but then everybody gets to evaluate the speaker and the speech evaluator themselves. And you listen to everybody's opinion, and it can be split. You could have 50 people saying, hey, you had great eye contact, and 50 people saying, yeah, your eye contact wasn't good. And it's really interesting because then you get to see how that speech impacted everybody. And then that's where you figure out, okay, it worked for some but not others, how can I make it work for all, etc. So that's a good point about the personal opinion. But when you're talking about the eye contact of 5 seconds, that is future focused. So next time, look at somebody for a little bit longer, or look at me for a little bit longer, because then I'll feel even more connected. And that gets back into the personal opinion that, I would appreciate next time, look at me a little bit longer, because then I'll even feel more rapport with you, etc. But somebody mentioned rambling, for instance. That's sort of maybe what the person, in my opinion, it felt like you were rambling, that's what the person was doing. But if you make that into future, how can you make that into future focus? So rather than saying somebody's rambling, which could be sort of, that could be a little negative, how can you make that future focused?
You could tell them the examples of what they were saying that ended up rambling. Maybe they were talking in a loop, saying the same thing over and over again using different words. And then tell them that That's just the same thing. You try saying something more expressive, give an example of what they could say that's more expressive or that expands on that opinion instead of just making it go round and round.
Yeah, no, good point. So you can get into, rather than saying, it was rounding, you say, I love the fact that you have the mountains and the beach and the et cetera and the other adventure. I think if you tied it together, it'd be even more cohesive. So you take that into the future. So you never actually mention rounding, but you can mention, tying some of the points together, as an example.
Or maybe it's looking for words. I mean,
And sometimes when the speaker doesn't know what they want to say because they start just repeating what they said before.
Searching for words.
So, and that's a difficult one for everyone, including myself. But you could always give examples as the evaluator on how to overcome that, what you could talk about instead when you're searching for words and stuff like that.
Yeah, excellent point. Now, it's difficult evaluating tabletop speeches because they are impromptu. Evaluations are usually done on the prepared speeches. Somebody's taken the time to put together 5 to 7 minutes, and then you go 2 to 3 minutes to evaluate that. So thank you very much for doing the tabletop, and thank you very much for willing to do an evaluation that was going to be evaluated by everybody. So a round of applause for both. I'm going to move on to the very last section here, which is club roles. And this comes down to the speaker. So when we do a speech, it's really important for the speaker to connect with the evaluator to discuss the goals. Have a look at an evaluation form and then discuss what you want to be evaluated on. But at the same time, the speech evaluator should be reaching out to the speaker to make that connection. So both should be connecting. And then the general evaluator is the person who actually evaluates the speech evaluator. So we did a group evaluation of Philippe's evaluation tonight, but in a club, it's the general evaluator that evaluates the speech evaluators. And that is really important because it's great to help a speaker become more effective. It's even better to help an evaluator become more effective. And I'll give you some techniques in terms of how you can do that. So connect the speech evaluator, discuss the goals, connect afterwards to provide the feedback on the evaluation, etc. Connect on the other side of the coin, connect with the speaker, my initial comments, and then the evaluator evaluate the speech of the evaluators. And with that, I am going to bring this to a close and hand this back to our Toastmaster.
I appreciate that we're looking forward to implementing a lot of that in my own evaluation. Before we wrap up, first we're going to find out how we can listen. I would like to pull up our words of non-conscious report and usage of the word of the day and the number of kilograms.